receiving information from a group in Atlanta who's visiting our city. This is a work session for information and discussion by the council. The topic today is purpose-built communities, which is a model for how some cities are growing. Atlanta specifically, they have moved away, and in this instance, I'm going to quote from someone locally who has worked in this area for a long time, Mr. John Hayes, and he has written that what they've done there is moved in Atlanta and other cities away from the traditional large-scale public housing developments that tend to warehouse low-income families in neighborhoods that are isolated from the rest of the community, and from educational and economic opportunities and support systems that possibly could help people become more economically and socially independent. And what they've done there, and they're going to share their experience with us, is replace isolated, crime-ridden, large-scale public housing developments with both mixed-income housing and housing vouchers that allow families to move to opportunities in non-impacted areas of their community. They are trying to break a cycle of crime, dependency, poverty, and things like that that have traditionally been associated, sadly, very sadly, with public housing. And I'm interested in this topic, and the City Council is interested in this topic, because one of the tenets upon which our community should be founded is that our citizens can find clean, safe, and affordable housing, good neighborhoods, where they can maybe find a green space or a park nearby to go have a picnic, ride a bike. So we know that we're changing slowly, and our public housing is changing slowly. And this committee, this housing committee, is going to be meeting about once a month for the next few months to hear from some of the people that are working on housing. And that's the reason we're very pleased today to have our two guests from Atlanta, who our mayor is going to introduce to us in just a moment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first met Shirley Franklin, who I will introduce to you first, when she was a fairly new mayor of Atlanta, and Bob Corker was a fairly new mayor of Chattanooga, and I had returned to the council along with Sally and Jack back many years ago now. And I knew about Ms. Franklin from her career in public service, being from Georgia, being a city planner by background, knew the things that she had done and accomplished and the reputation that already had preceded her at that point. And so we went down and we had a very fine meeting about the relationships between Chattanooga and Atlanta, because we know that we are uniquely tied together. A lot of our history is the same, and we're just far enough apart that we offer different lifestyles, but we complement each other. And it was that sort of conversation. A few years later, when I was then mayor of Chattanooga, she invited me and a number of other mayors in the Southeast to come down to Chattanooga, down to Atlanta from Chattanooga, and to view and experience a project that they had been working on for quite some time. And the thing that intrigued me, it was about the resurrection and renovation of the East Lake community. Well, we think of East Lake here, and Atlanta has an East Lake as well, a very historic community, and one that surrounded a very historic golf course where Bobby Jones had been his golf course. But it had been a traditional housing project in the terms that we all understand when we say housing project. And while it had served a useful purpose early in its life, it had deteriorated, as most of them have over the years, and had become quite a different kind of community. And I remember her saying to me in a small group that were down there, you've often heard of those stories about places where the police were afraid to go at certain times of the evening. And East Lake Housing Project had become that kind of place. It was a deteriorated and dangerous community. It was not suitable housing. It was not a good place to bring up a child. It was not a place to give people hope for the future. And so they embarked on a project to renovate that. And I won't tell their story because they tell it very well. But I was impressed by that. Met some of the people involved. Tom Cousins, very well known, Cousins Properties in Atlanta. And enough people that really had taken that community and said, you know, we have a common need to make sure that Atlanta prospers and that everyone has a chance to prosper as a result of that. So Richard Beelan and I went down and saw all that they had done. We were very impressed. And as inevitably happens, life closes in, and we really didn't get back to that for a while. And here we have come full circle in Chattanooga. We've got a lot of things going on for us here, Volkswagen, Alstom, all of those things. And we have made progress with our own Hope 6 project and so forth, but we're still looking for something better and a model that we can use to renovate the remaining relics of the past that are still deteriorating and still not serving the purpose for which they were intended. I've had an opportunity to work with Shirley Franklin in Washington and other places with U.S. Conference of Mayors, and she's introduced me to Carol Naughton, who she will introduce, and we've gone back and forth and learned a lot about the organization, which has become Purpose-Built Communities. And I knew when she was term limited that she would go on to greater things, and I really think that's where she is now. Greater things, because this is a quest to restore the hearts of communities and neighborhoods in great cities like Atlanta that can be expanded and replicated all over the country. We're fortunate that Atlanta is close enough that they have offered us a hand, a helping hand, not a financial hand, but a guiding hand to help us to take our community to the next level. Tell her she's still my mayor of Atlanta, although I know the new mayor of Atlanta, like him very much, but I know that she is a person with which we can all work, and so it's my pleasure now to present to you former mayor of Atlanta, Shirley Franklin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us. I spoke with the mayor a few minutes ago and told him that I had not been before the city council since leaving office. But it would take a sister city like Chattanooga to get me back behind the podium. And a wonderful opportunity to talk about a model that has worked in Atlanta, really started in the 1990s and continues today in a particular neighborhood. And the result of that work is what we will present later in the program. So we want to thank you, the committee chair, and all members of council for giving us a few minutes. Carol Naughton, who is my colleague at Purpose-Built Communities, served as the general counsel to the Atlanta Housing Authority in the 1990s. She then joined East Lake Foundation as the executive director. And when it was determined that we would pursue this opportunity to share our experiences with other American cities, she joined Purpose-Built Communities, started that off, and now is one of the most important people in the community redevelopment field. Is an expert in housing and real estate, building consensus in communities, and tracking that success, and finding ways to work to use a model that we think has some universal elements, but also to help shape it for the specific needs and aspirations of the community. So we are delighted to join you today. I will be here for questions, and Carol Naughton is going to make a very brief presentation.